President. You know, when I go home back to Alabama, I usually ask the people back home, what's most important to you? Every day, what's most important to you? And usually there's a consensus of three things: a good job, schools for their kids, and safe neighborhoods for their families. That's always what they talk about. You know, the fulfillment of these basic aspirations is the foundation of a quality life, the foundation of the American dream. In my relatively short time up here, I've noticed people in this building often lose sight of those three basic items. We waste time bickering over things that, at the end of the day, don't much matter in the grand scheme of things. We engage in partisan commentary, all in the hopes of scoring political points. Folks back home can't relate to this because they don't have the luxury to waste time on cheap talk. We're witnessing a nationwide surge in crime as we speak. In the last year, homicides have risen upwards of 30%. This is unprecedented and double the largest previous increase of 13% since 1968. There always is more than one factor to consider when analyzing crime trends, but in the effect of some Democrats, anti-police rhetoric has been perfectly clear. Just take a look at what's happening across our country as we speak. For last year, we've heard some Democrats at every level talk about wanting to defund the police, take money away from them. We've got too many of them. In many cities, they control. Democrats succeeding in reducing policy budgets. They've been very successful. They've told police to stop doing their jobs, stop enforcing certain laws. You know, I've heard Democrats say that they want to replace cops with social workers. You know, while I understand the well-intentioned desire to address the root cause of crime, instead of just focusing on the fallout, leaving our police underfunded and ill-equipped is not the solution. If someone is attempting to break into my house, I'm not calling a social worker to come perform an evaluation to develop a treatment for the assailant. I'm not doing that. Too often, we've seen elected officials take the side of radicals burning property, burning small businesses, over the men and women who wear the badge and have sworn to preserve and protect our communities. And now we're seeing the consequences all across the country. As one report notes, in New York City, murders have increased 47% since 2020. Tickets and routine arrests dropped by 90%, but requests for police intervention went up by 50%. But the police won't go. They're not wanted. Murders in Los Angeles this year are up 32%, and shootings up 59%. But arrests in Los Angeles have dropped 37% since 2020 and are down even more this year. In Chicago, murders are up 33% this year. Last weekend alone, 12 people shot and killed, 63 more shot. The latest in a string of deadly weekends this summer, and carjackings in the city have tripled in the last year. Why would you buy a car in Chicago? It's going to get stolen. Makes no sense. In Minneapolis, where cries to defund the police are loudest, murders are up 69%. Turns out that when protesters, activists, mainstream media, and elected officials told cops they're not wanted, it's not just the officers who heard them. Criminals also were listening, and the American people are paying the price. Also, the defund rhetoric from the left is having a severely negative effect on police morale. all-time low. Some officers say, according to a NBC survey, 200 police departments, officer retirements are up 45%. And resignations are up 18% this year. Why would anybody get up and put a uniform on in the morning with a badge on their chest and a gun on their side and go to work in this climate of crime? We have to take our hat off to the men and women that are actually doing this and doing the best job they can. Some police chiefs have had enough. Chicago police superintendent said their court systems continued to release the violent criminals in their jails, quote, making us all less safe. The District of Columbia Police, just right here in our hometown, said, quote, we cannot continue to coddle violent criminals. Amen. But the ugly truth is there's a deliberate attempt to coddle these violent criminals, and it's bankrolled by the most radical fringe in the Democratic Party. District attorneys are the local public officials who determine whether and how the government will prosecute criminals from petty theft to violent crime. District attorneys. In the last couple of years, there's been a big movement to elect ultra-radical liberal district attorneys in big cities across the country. They've succeeded in Philadelphia, San Francisco, Boston, and just right across the river in Fairfax County, Virginia. These rogue prosecutors, and they are rogue, are refusing to prosecute all sorts of crimes like theft, disorderly conduct, and trespassing. Well, what's their job? It's to prosecute, but not these prosecutors. This isn't just opposing the men and women who wear the badge. These radical leftists are opposing the very idea of enforcing the law. The prosecutor's job is to enforce the laws that are written, not rewrite the laws in the book. But these DAs are choosing to follow the law as if they see fit. They know better than everybody else, ignoring what the people's representatives have passed. In San Francisco, District Attorney Chesa Bowen said his office wouldn't prosecute theft under $950. The result has been people robbing stores in broad daylight. We've all seen it on TV, going in the store, just grabbing all you can get and not running out the door, but walking out the door. If the cops are called, they still don't show up because they know that they're not going to do anything to these petty crimes. But it leads to bigger crimes. These DAs are choosing to follow the law as they see fit, ignoring what the people's representatives have passed. In San Francisco, District Attorney Chesa Bowen said his office wouldn't prosecute theft under $950. The result has been people robbing stores in broad daylight every day. If the cops are called again, they won't show up. But probably the worst of all is in Boston. Rachel Rollins, elected DA in Boston in 2018, released a list of crimes that her office would by default move to dismiss when it came to court. We're not going to prosecute these. Trespassing, shoplifting, theft under $250, disorderly conduct, drug possession with intent to distribute, malicious destruction of property, breaking and entering so long as the defender was trying to sleep or escape the cold, resisting arrest, and that's not even the entire list. What do they need a DA for? So a violent felon could steal $200 worth of goods, have large amounts of drugs, break into someone's home, resist arrest, and the DA's office would not even bother to prosecute these crimes. Makes a lot of sense to me. If all that sounds crazy to you, you're right, but these are the actual policies and the real world effects. And now Rollins, this same district attorney in Boston that decided she's going to just take a vacation and being a district attorney and not try to convict anybody, this Miss Rollins has been appointed by President Biden to be the U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts. He's given the person who decriminalized resisting arrest and all these other laws promotion. That's from our president. I wonder what federal crimes she'll decide aren't worth processing. There's surely somebody in Boston that can do the job. And yet President Biden is the only one saying Republicans are lying. Said that just a couple of weeks ago about Democrats wanting to fund the police. He said it's Republicans. I'll tell you what's also not helping to make our neighborhoods safer: the growing crisis at our southern border. Absolute shame. And the Biden administration completely lacks the urgency to fix it. And it's getting worse every day. I guess nobody cares. We've already surpassed 1 million illegal immigrants since President Biden was inaugurated. And remember, this data is looking at the illegal immigrants and the drugs that the Customs and Border Protection catches. We don't know how many have slipped by or how many pounds of dope have slipped by. We just know the ones that we've caught. President Biden is only making matters worse, folks. As our colleagues on the Homeland Security Government Affairs Committee found, the Biden administration is spending $2 billion to not build the wall. We're paying $2 billion. The taxpayers in this country are paying $2 billion to not build a wall. That's right. That's $3 million every day of your taxpayer money wasted just to not build something that would help fix this crisis. The bare minimum we should expect to happen at the border would be to make sure illegal immigrants we do not apprehend have a court date so a judge can review their asylum claim. I mean, that's common sense. But according to a recent report, 50,000 illegal immigrants have been released into the United States in the last few months without a court date. Yet 13% of those have bothered to show back up, 13%. We're going to trust them to come over here and just do it on their own. That's not going to happen. At best, this hurts those who come into this country actually looking to plead their asylum case. At worst, it's giving free rein for people to violate the law. At best, this hurts those who come to this country actually looking to plead their asylum case. At worst, it's given free rein. Congress needs to pass my bill, S-107, that would require the DHS provide notice to appear after releasing the illegal immigrants into our country. It just makes common sense. But as we've seen, too many folks in charge don't have any common sense when it comes to enforcing the law. Everybody can see violent crime rising in big cities. They can see the Biden administration turning a blind eye to a continually growing catastrophe on the southern border. The American people are right to question. They're right to question President Biden and the Democrats' commitment to rule of law. They question their commitment to keeping our citizens and neighborhoods safe. Now, I'm painting a pretty big picture here, but you got to call it as you see it. But there are things we in the Senate can do to make the situation better. We can do things here, right in this room right here, to make things better. It starts with everybody fully supporting our law enforcement, because if we don't, one day we're going to regret it. We need to improve morale and recruit the best and brightest in our police forces to keep our communities safe. We should also empower all law enforcement to address the negative effect at our border crossing. This is the local and state police. The Empowering Law Enforcement Act that I presented a few months ago would give them the power to take over for ICE, which basically they have been handcuffed. My bill would grant this and give the authority to investigate and identify, which we at this moment don't have. If the Biden administration won't enforce the law, let's give local and state law enforcement the opportunity to do it. Folks, wanting safe communities is something every American wants and deserves. We elect public officials, we pay taxes and trust our governments to ensure safety for the greatest number of people possible. It's pretty much impossible to have good jobs and good schools if you don't have safe neighborhoods. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that. If the people don't feel safe, the government and we as government officials have failed to perform its most basic function. Failure of this is not an option. So to reverse this crime, this rise in crime, let's support the very people who put their lives on the line every day. I certainly do, and I encourage the President and members of this body to support every member of our law enforcement. Madam President, I yield the floor.